Bonjour à tous, je suis Yvon Jadoul.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Yvon Jaloul. Bonjour, je m'appelle Thomas. Vous êtes là.
Très heureux de vous retrouver aujourd'hui.
You are here at the General Assembly of SMART. We're very happy to have you for this ordinary General Assembly, and I hope you're all doing very well since you are following us, whether from Liège, Charleroi, Louvain-la-Neuve, or in Brussels, in LaVallée, and not to forget Mons. And I hear in my earpiece, this is the subtlety this year, that there would be 150 people watching us, and according to the police, and 350 according to the trade unions. So we say hello to you. And during this General Assembly, we're going to talk about numbers, activities, your activities, as co-op members, and we're going to talk about governance also, and this will be in the next 2 to 3 hours we have together. So I would like to remind you that you have until 5 p.m. or 15 past 5 to vote, so please vote, and do not hesitate also to share your feedback, your questions you might have, whether on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Some colleagues are monitoring those chat rooms and will try to answer your questions.
Mijn kant op de algemene vergadering van SMART. Het is een moment.
So, welcome to the SMART General Assembly. This is the moment where we can look at what happened during the past 12 months. So, we're going to look at the numbers, what they represent, what they mean. And we're doing this in Brussels today with very few people on site. But as you have heard my colleague Yves say, there's hundreds of people following us in Mons, Antwerp, Liège, Molenbeek in LaVallée. Many people are following this event today. So today, this is the big moment for democracy within our organization. So the goal is really to present some resolutions, some numbers, so that you can vote on those decisions. It's important to highlight the fact that this is the time when democracy is being highlighted and when you can get involved. And we're submitting some resolutions for your approval. And you can take part in this General Assembly in different ways, and you can also vote. You can also share your feedback, your questions, and we'll try to relay them and to answer them. So this is really a call on voting. Please vote today. You have until 5:15. I have Anne-Laure Degris and Maxime Dechaine, our delegate co-administration. I'm going to give the floor to Anne-Laure for this welcome. Thank you, Yvon. Good afternoon, everyone. So indeed, for the second year, the health measures linked to COVID-19 have led us to do some online meetings. So some offices are meeting locally, and it is a great pleasure to meet locally, but also in video conference for the others. So the program since this morning has allowed to organize local workshops, online workshops to share questions and feedback before giving your feedback on the resolutions from the Smart COP Commission, and you'll be able to vote for the next board because they are coming to the end of their mandate and they have to be renewed. The issue of governance and transparency is also something that is a daily concern almost, and in General Assembly with several thousands of members, as with the smart community, this is a true challenge. So it's been quite an intense year, and it has kept us busy on all fronts, and we try to share as much information as we could on different things in the news. so far. So as the management board, we have worked endlessly, and sometimes we met several times a month to raise to the different challenges of these crises, but also to work on the 2025 challenges, strategies. So we'll have some strategic approvals for the next 5 years. This is the result of a long process because we start from the Smart in Progress reflections. So we had some structuring work between the different boards, and now we're coming to you for the final approval. Yesterday, Monday, we were in the Bazar Saint-Saul in Lille for Smart France, and of course we submitted some resolutions and there was a vote, but we also informed of a decision from our boards. Because for several years we wanted to add the French-Belgian dimension by placing the different legal entities of the group under a single management, but there's a French draft and a Belgian draft with different development logic. So we thought it was important to look at the cooperative life of each organization. So for Smart Belgium or Smart France, they will each have a dedicated delegate administration that will be different, so we can strengthen the governance to Smart Belgium and Smart France, so there will be a shorter decision process to tackle the issues for the next few months. And together, of course, we will share solidarities, projects, the cooperative culture, but this is an important step in governance and the next developments. So we have a General Assembly with some legal steps. So this is the end of a cycle and the opening of a new one. This is when the Board of Directors or Executive Board is meeting the members and to see how they can get involved in the social assembly. Last piece of information, the Smart in Progress working groups have been impacted by COVID, so our participation process has been affected by the lockdown, by remote working, teleworking. So it confirms that after 5 cycles of Smart in Progress, it's important to do a stock count of this process, and we are aware that this participation has to evolve. So we're going to take some time, and this is what is proposed for the coming year.
Bonjour, alors
Good afternoon.
éléments avant de passer
A few more elements before we give the floor to colleagues or other trustees. First, a para that I did. It's a copy and paste from last year, I must admit, but we have gone through an unprecedented crisis again this year. We had to face that together. It has had some health impacts, but also psychological and economical. So given the size of this crisis, it would be quite arrogant to say that we cannot look at the impact at the smart level. But we set up a Corona plan to support you through this crisis, but also at the end of this crisis to try to have a soft landing, but always quite humbly and with motivation. So what a year indeed. We held strong, and so since early 2021 we expect some recovery. Of course, generally, sometimes there might be some local difficulties, but collectively there is some recovery spirit, and that shows our resilience. And we have noticed that many members managed to position in new sectors or new activities. So this year also, and that was very interesting, we had a quite significant improvement in terms of recognition of our model. of a shared company with some partnerships with institutional players to get some financial support from Finance Brussels just after the first lockdown, or the fact that we got some subsidies adapted also to our special model. And finally, we could benefit from a significant premium from social services, social contributions that had impacted many companies. So, as we said in the introduction, I think it's important to remind us that you all received a link by email to do online voting. You have until 5 today to vote. Please do it because it's important. We have to renew the board, and so we need to approve, we hope, the strategy that we will develop over the next few years. I'm going to finish by thanking people. So, like I said, we're going to renew the board, so I would like to thank the members who are finishing their first mandate of the board, whether they want to renew it or not. Thank you, everyone, because they had a lot of energy to support us through this crisis, without mentioning Allah. So I would like to thank all of them for opening the way and to get organized to share the relay with people who will be elected today. Second, thanks. Well, I would like to thank the team, the share team. This is the link between different projects and the cooperative. It is their strong commitment that makes us go forward, even in the most complicated situations, such as the one we're going through. It is important also highlighting, but this you will see when we look at the accounts, that they took part in the financial effort we had to do to go through this crisis with partial activities. So they rolled up their sleeves in adapting the way they work, but also to support all the members by being affected by partial activity. So it's also important, I think, to thank them for this. And finally, I would like to thank all of you for all the members. You are the main raison d'être of this project, and it is by choosing shared company, Cooperative, to develop your projects that you showed your will for a more a world with more solidarity. So now I wish you a good General Assembly. Thank you, Allah. Thank you, Maxime, for these this introduction. So now we're going to tackle our core topics. So I'll let you go, but I'll probably ask you to come back, maybe to answer the questions of our members. So, as we have noticed before, the very beginning during the introduction, a General Assembly is in fact a moment that allows us to do some stock count. And this is what we're going to do today. We're going to look at the numbers, we're going to look at what's behind those numbers, and we're going to look at the social goal that we try to reach, and we'll give the floor to the Commissioner. But first, we're going to start with the dry matter, that is numbers. And Benoît Lecomte has just joined us. Benoît Lecomte is the Financial Director. Be welcome. I'm in charge of presenting to you the financial results of the Smart Group for 2020. It's been indeed, as Maxime highlighted, deeply affected by COVID on our activities, and especially for the activities of our members. A little comment first. The numbers that you're going to see are the consolidated figures for all the entities of SMART, the 14 entities, compared to 2019. These figures include, take into account the internal charging for 2020, and the results of these figures are the stabilization work that we've been doing in our accounting practices since 2019.
engagé en 2019.
the work we started in 2019 and continued in 2020, and that we will continue in 2021. So this is some work that we are doing in collaboration with RSM, our company auditor, and with the strengthening of our accounting and finance department so as to finalize our accounting practices to have a better view of our results and to secure it better
Sur le slide suivant.
in terms of taxes. Next slide, please.
Donc, je vais présenter
So I'm going to show you first the consolidated P&L for 2020 for most of the Smart Belgium entities, and then we'll look at the consolidated P&L. So for the consolidated P&L, I'm going to look at my slides because I can't look at the screen. It's too small.
on a un résultat
So
avant impôt qui
before taxes,
est négatif à
we have minus 4,200,000 euros. So it's difficult than lifting weight. Minus 4.2 million versus 1.5 million last year, and that's due to the activity that was deeply affected by COVID-19, and we'll come back to the details later on, but you will see that it is in the turnover, the revenues of the group that we have the deepest impact. We have a minus 20%, and we'll see also that the cost of sales,
l'utilisation
that is using
des revenus de nos membres
the revenues of our members, using the revenues of our members has been quite cautious concerning this decrease of turnover, and we'll also focus on structural charges, how the structure has used its budget, and we will conclude with a few words on the other operational charges. Next slide, please.
s'il vous plaît.
And again, please.
Voilà.
Okay.
Donc, au niveau du
So,
chiffre
as for the turnover,
vous voyez que le total
you can see that the total for 2020 has decreased by 20%, and the main reason to this of course, is due to the decrease of turnover for the cooperative, minus 20.1%. So we have less turnover than 2019, 32 million euros. That, of course, is explained by the difficulty of our members to
leurs activités par rapport à cette
the fact that our members were deeply affected by this crisis in their activities. So there is a gap between the different results available for our members. So if the project activity is only at minus 17, the 3-in-1 contracts, the short contracts, have been more affected and decreased by 24%. So the 6.5% contribution to Smart was also decreased by the same amount as the turnover. As for sales and services, we have minus 20%, 19.6 exactly, because the sharing has decreased, which is due to the company turnover decrease. So we have less remuneration, less work contracts, so less revenues with the social contribution. So this was worsened by the fact that in the proportion of the 3-in-1 contracts, project contracts, we have less artistic contracts,
de la suspension
because of all the cultural activities having to stop during this pandemic. So that has, of course, further decreased the revenues there. We have a slight compensation for the sales and services because we had more invoices invoicing of charges between France and Belgium, and we have indeed extended the re-invoicing scope from Belgium to France by including this year some licenses, patents, tools, and facilities costs, that is the IT hardware and the licenses linked to the IT. So this is some reinvoicing that did not exist in 2019. So now let's look at how our members have used their turnover. Well, we can see that the total of direct sales has decreased in the same proportion as the turnover, and this is particularly true in remunerations, social contributions, and pension schemes, but also in the cost charges that were reimbursed to the members for their activities. So these decreases in remunerations and costs are partly compensated by the doubling of the products for activities. That is the cash flow or the savings of our members at the end of 2020. So that's 3.4 versus 1.5 the previous year million. So the use of revenues by our members shows that they have been quite cautious given the pandemic and the crisis. So the total of revenues minus the cost, we have a gross margin at 19.7%. It's 5 million less than last year. The gross margin is the operating budget of the structure. So let's look at how the cost of the organization have evolved. That's the combination of different services, the remuneration of the shared teams, and also charges, operational charges. We see that we have an increase of 8.5% of the organization cost at 20.4 million versus 18.6 million the previous year. So you might think that the organization did not do any effort when it comes to the lower turnover, but this is not true because these numbers were affected by elements that I will describe later on. The organization has set up, has done some savings and saving plans during the year to compensate for the decrease of turnover in the service and miscellaneous goods. We saved a lot of money on operational cost, traveling, catering, and stuff, and it's also visible in the remuneration of the shared team, a mutualized team, because we had some temporary unemployment measures between April and December that has allowed to save 1.2 million in terms of payroll. But of course, it's not visible here in the numbers because this was impacted by two accounting phenomena. That was a production that was less than last year, so it has a cost of 2.3 million. We spent less time with our shared team and less time of our consultants to work. So we decided that the time of the shared team and DSI should be assigned to solving operational issues and to solve the operational issues during this crisis for our members. And so we did less fixed assets this year. In line 33, other operational costs, you can see that there's an increase by 800,000 euros here. So that's direct impact of having some charges because of the dispute in contributions, social contributions, and so this was taken over in a lower line of the P&L. So the P&L is negative of 750,000 euros, and the EBITDA was 6.5 million in 2019. Last element for the P&L to have a full overview, we're going to look at the other operational charges. I have it here.
Donc c'est l'élément qui permet de...
So this is the element that allows us to see how the smart organization is using the P&L results to maintain this shared tool and to reinvest in the smart project. So some important figures here, and I will not mention the other results that are slightly lower, but we're going to focus on exceptional charges, where we have a slight increase of 45,000 euros. That's not very significant as such, but these two lines are important in terms of explanations. For bankruptcies, we had to take action. There's not much of an increase despite the economic situation, and this is due to the new law that was put in force in 2020. So this ended at the beginning of 2021. So that might trigger an increase of those charges in 2021. So we'll have to keep an eye on this. Another important element here is exceptional charges, 584,000 euros. There are two measures that were put in place by the organization here to support our members. First, the Corona social aid that was put in place, and which has had an impact of about 400,000 euros. And then we have the temporary unemployment premium, that is the 7 euros per day not worked for the members, but also the permanent team. That's 180,000 euros. So the largest gaps for the other operational charges, that's for depreciations, value reductions, and provisions. So we had a slight decrease of depreciations by 130,000 euros. So this is directly linked with fixed asset production that has decreased in 2020, less fixed assets. So we had a big increase in the value reduction by about 1.9 million. And here we need to stop because this gap between 2020 and 2019 can be explained through two things. First, the desire and the decision to do provisions for value reduction at the European level. Indeed, we did a provision for depreciation of about 2 million euros for the European smart companies, and we reduced by 100% the contributions in the Netherlands and Hungary because our activities went dormant, and reduction of 25% of our participation in Spain and Italy.
Moreover, this line is also impacted by the increase of value reduction on the delivery assets because of the judgment that was sentenced in 2021. So this is another extra impact. In 2019, we had reduced that debt by 30% more or less. Now it's even higher.
On a ici
On line 613, again by 1.2 million, and here there is a link with what I was saying before with the ONSS.
est en fait reprise dans cette ligne, et donc ce qui explique.
So this is included on this line, and it explains why we have such a gain in 2020.
Donc dernier slide sur le
So
compte.
this is my final slide on P&L. We have a net result which is 3.2
Donc c'est un résultat net d'impôt.
million.
Malgré l'exercice difficile,
Despite
importante,
this difficult year, we still have a lot of taxes to pay, even more than in 2019, and this can be explained by the ESOC on the Secretariat.
Suite à un contrôle TVA qui a
There was a tax control that led to a regularization, and this led to high tax level for the Secretariat. Let's now look at the consolidated results for the whole SMART group.
Slide suivant.
Next slide, please. Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Slide suivant, s'il vous plaît.
Next slide, once again.
Alors,
Thank you.
Au niveau de l'actif du bilan,
What about the assets? Well, we have the fixed assets and the non-fixed assets. For the fixed asset, we have a drop by 2.5 million, if I'm correct.
sont en recul. À la fois les immobilisations incorporelles qui
We have less fixed assets at all levels.
sont moins immobilisées de production immobilisée cette année.
Given that we have less fixed assets, it is normal that it goes down.
Un peu plus de 800 000 euros en raison d'un
Fixed and unfixed assets go down. Indeed, we've been investing less in our structures and in our members.
recul également. Et là, c'est malgré
The financial fixed assets are going down as well, despite some support from SMART to our European partners that amount to 1.2 million.
financière. Au niveau de l'actif circulant, on a une progression de 12.
Regarding the non-fixed assets or current assets, we have some progress.
Environ 5 millions d'euros sur les.
We have a drop of 5 million euro on debts, on customer debts, or client debts rather, and there is a clear link with the drop of turnover by 20%. When you have less turnover, you have less debt, therefore debts are lower in that 2020 balance sheet.
L'actif circulant ici.
What is favorable when it comes to the current assets is the evolution of the cash flow. Cash flow has improved by 18.6 million in 2020 in comparison to 2019. So cash flow is 27 million now. What are the main causes of the improvement? Well, the refund of the payment we had made to Sank Soimo in 2019, it was 4 million euros. And it also comes from the negotiation of the payment plans that we've had with the ONSS and the Ministry for Finance because of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Vous pouvez passer 2 slides.
Next slide, please.
Voilà.
Once again, wonderful, thank you.
Voilà le passif donc du.
What about the liabilities or debts?
On peut observer donc
In the consolidated results,
au niveau des
we can see a major impact when it comes to own funds. They go back by nearly 5 million euros. There's a direct link with the net result of this fiscal year, so there's a direct impact on own funds. This loss is slightly compensated by an increase of the capital and the social shares owned by our members by 500,000 euros. Let's highlight here that the variation of the social capital is the same between 2019 and 2020 and between 2018 and 2019. This shows that there's some trust of our COP members in our tools and in our project. There are variations in debts as well. Debts increased by nearly 13 million euros. For one-year debts, we have an increase as well, 900,000 euros. This is because of the loan granted by Finance Brussels for 1.7 million euros. This loan aims at boosting the recovery of our members.
Qui est compensé par le remboursement normal annuel de nos financements long terme.
This is compensated by our long-term refunding.
Particulièrement les dettes auprès de nos établissements.
Debts over 1 year increase as well. We've actually managed to negotiate with our banking partners an additional credit line of 2 million euros that did not exist in the past. The goal is to face any potential cash flow difficulty.
Les prêts court terme courants pour financer
we also wanted to fund the holiday allowance that were higher in 2020 than in 2019. Moreover, to give some relief to our cash flow. Moreover, we didn't know about the final impact of the crisis. We decided to use loans to pay the end-of-year bonuses, which we were not used to do in the past. So it's 1 million euro. Then we have tax and social debts that increase 7 million euros. In there we have all the payment plans that have been negotiated with the ONSS and with the Ministry for Finance for the VAT debts, among other things. These plans were applied end 2020, hence the importance of the amount in our results. Those plans were negotiated on a period of 24 months. We will pay back those loans until the end of fiscal year 2022. Then, when it comes to regularization, you can see an increase by 3.4 million euros. It represents the assets from our members. There's a direct impact on that line in 2020. Thank you very much, Benoit, for this presentation. Let me remind you that some workshops were made about the accounts. You can view them again online if you want. I would like to wish prompt recovery to our colleague who was supposed to be there with us to present the figures with Benoit, but who couldn't be there. Now, I look at Pierre and Julie for the activity report. Julie is from the mutualized team. She's mostly in charge of communication, and Pierre is one of our administrator. You have the floor. Thank you very much, Yvonne. Good afternoon, everybody. So we will present to you the activity report 2020, and before we read through it, I wanted to remind you what this is all about. So the activity report aims at giving you an overview of the different activities and projects that have been carried out throughout the year 2020. What will you find in this report? Well, quality data on the mutualized action within our cooperative, and you'll find some accounts from the members, witness accounts from our members. In this activity report, we gather Belgium and France activities. We'll obviously look at it together, but you can download it on the SMART website. And I will now give the floor to Pierre, who will tell you about some of the key figures of that report. Yes, some key figures. Obviously, we've had a lot of figures previously with the P&L and consolidated accounts. The turnover for Belgium is 140 million euros. It represents the work of 17,000 employees who together represented an FTE of 1,711 people. So they represent 1,711 FTEs. And 2020, we had 27,268 COP members. In 2020, 3,504 people joined our cooperative. It is interesting to see that we have a nice gender balance, 47% women, 53% of men. 51% of our members live in the Brussels regions, 34% in Wallonia, 14% in Flanders.
Alors, j'avais préparé une petite note sur
I had prepared some words about the strategy, but we'll get back to it later on. Besides, Anne-Laure already told us a lot about it. So let me just remind you that you can have a look at it on our website. Go for it. This is where you'll find the information you are looking for. Julie, you have the floor. Thank you very much. At the strategic level, there's another fact for 2020. We've implemented the Corona plan. The goal was to tackle the sanitary and economic crisis that we are facing. In this plan, we have different aspects. First of all, economic support, such as trainings, access to temporary unemployment benefits, and so on. Moreover, there's another aspect, which are cooperative support, such as the implementation of a social support fund in order to help people that were in a difficult situation. This fund was funded collectively by the members of SMART. 445 support measures have been granted in total. Then there was a third aspect in that Corona plan, measures to support recovery. One of the action, for instance, was the launch of a 0% rate, which was launched in November 2020, if I'm correct. Therefore, members that have an activity can get a loan without any interest rate. So that's for the Corona plan. The chapter of the activity report is about the impact of that very particular year on the activity of our members. The impact is obviously quite high on the activities of the members. The gross turnover of the members has decreased. Some figures: invoicing level has decreased by 19%, The employment budget has decreased by 21%, and the amount of members on the year has decreased by 13%. In total, 3,660 contracts have been cancelled. In the activity report, you will find an analysis of all those figures, so please go look at that analysis. Maybe a word on the permanent contract workers. Yes, absolutely. So this is a tool that is not well known, but it is still interesting to have a look at it.
La mise en place et la proposition pour les membres de...
There's a possibility for the members to have a permanent contract. At the moment, we have 33 permanent contracts that have been set up, 21 full-time and 12 part-time contracts. Members with a permanent contract had the possibility to ask for unemployment benefits and received smart support in that regard. Now a word about the mutualized team. I'm part of it. Obviously, you know the advisors that are part of the mutualized team, but in total, these are more than 300 workers that are working within SMART. They are at the service of the members. You have IT, customer service, communication team, HR, and so on. This team is both active in France and Belgium. In 2020, 223 people were working from Belgium.
Sur ces travailleurs, vous avez en fait 128 conseillers et conseillères.
You have within that team 128 advisors.
Et ils et elles sont répartis dans 25
They are present in 25 cities where we have offices.
Sur cette année qui a été sacrément chamboulée, l'accompagnement...
2020 was a difficult year. Obviously, we tried to limit the impact of the crisis. This is what the advisors have been trying to do with the members.
Autre fait marquant, ce sont les formations.
Trainings. Do you want to go on with trainings, maybe, or do you want me to do it? Go ahead, go ahead. So the sanitary crisis was a boost for a project aiming at developing online training. This is a project that we had in mind. We had in mind for a while, and we've organized quite a bunch of trainings in total. More than 1,000 took part in those trainings.
On peut aussi citer que le service juridique...
You can also mention that the legal service met with 3,200 members. So we are happy to have such a good and effective legal service. Regarding insurance now, it is important to say that as members in the contracts, you have a civil responsibility, you have material protection insurance, working insurance, and mutualization allows you to lower the costs. When it comes to insurance and IT risks that are covered, well, we have services in that regard. In our mutualized company, we also have shared offices. SMART is developing shared offices on its own or with partners. It has been the case for a while now. In 2020, Bazar Saint-So shared offices opened up. Bazar Saint-So were under works for 2 years. Now it opened up. There are 5,000 square meters that are available for different companies, and they are available for our members as well. In Belgium, SMART has also supported the cooperative Dynamo in Liège. This cooperative has just launched a new project for a cooperative bakery. we've been supporting this project. And then in the Vallée Tiers-Lieu in Brussels,
En ce moment, eh bien, malgré la
where we are at the moment, well, despite the difficult context, we've been holding several exhibitions that have been
Alors, poursuivons
praised by
cette,
the public and the press.
activité et attachons-nous maintenant au
Let's
chapitre
now
qui est
look
ensemble
at the chapter of the activity report that is about our shared activities and our cooperative itself. In the report, you'll have more information about the secretariat, about the board, and about the different parts of our
des temps, des moments qui ont
cooperative.
été menés et qui ont
In that
animé
chapter, you'll find some information about the main events that we held in 2020. We had the big rencontre, we had the General Assembly.
mais attardons-nous juste quelques
All of this is mentioned in the activity report, but we also had the social elections that took part end of the year in November 2020. It allowed the workers to elect their representatives within the Economic Council and the CPPT, which is the Committee for Prevention at Work, Prevention and Security at Work.
invités à participer à ces élections. Et donc, c'était une première pour SMART. Et cette démarche, en fait,
We decided to include temporary workers in that social dialogue. This is a first, and this is something that we are developing in SMART at the moment. So it was the first step that we had in 2020. Let's conclude by saying that in this report, we have a chapter on the international activities.
On vous propose de nouveau vraiment d'y aller. D'aller.
So once again, we encourage you to have a look at this report, to read through it. You will find plenty of useful information. I think that's all we had to say about the activity report.
Dank u wel, Pierre en Julie. Vooral Julie en haar team die een titanenwerk.
Well, thank you very much, Pierre. Thank you, Julie, and your team for that amazing job in drafting that annual report. Let me remind you to vote on the resolutions, and I will now give the floor to Nelly, who will tell us about a very important aspect of the annual report. Nelly, you have the floor. Thank you very much, Thomas. Good afternoon, everybody. Indeed, I'd like to tell you a few words about our corporate purpose and the impact that we want to have. Let me remind you that last year we had the corporate law that was adapted in Belgium. The Smart Cooperative was a cooperative with a social purpose, and with the new legal framework we had to adapt, and we now have different statutes. Just like last year, we've drafted a specific report in that regard. In this report, you have two parts. First part is about how we fulfill the new requirements for companies. And the second part of this report is mostly about how we can support people that are members of SMART. We also mentioned the different actions that have been carried out to reach our corporate purpose. We tell about the different activities that have been carried out. We mention our collective model and the risks that we are facing. There are some major principles that I mentioned. One of the principles is the fact that we cannot be profit-based. We are non-profit. The results of the group are included in indivisible reserves, So we don't
Een ander punt is nog
give back part of the benefit to the shareholders.
Dit jaar opnieuw zal verkozen worden straks, niet vergoed worden.
The terms of the managers,
Het principe van één persoon, één stem, ongeacht hoeveel aandelen iemand
are not paid. So the managers are not paid for their work as managers.
Het tweede deel gaat over het bevorderen van de socio-economische ontwikkeling van de venoten, zoals ik al zei. Met dit jaar ook een...
Then we also explain how we can support the economic development of our members. This is the second part of the project I was telling you about. During the sanitary crisis we've been through, we decided to focus on solidarity. This is why we've created the Corona plan with different support measures, economic measures, recovery measures, and so on and so forth.
Wat dan globaal gezien de socio-economische ontwikkeling van de venoten betreft, daar valt onder meer
global point of view,
juridische bescherming onder. We hebben het daarnet gezien.
We talked about the social, economic, legal protection of our members.
Bescherming te blijven bieden voor de.
As it was said, we do our best
We hebben
to provide the best social and economic framework as possible to our members. In 2020, we employed more or less 17,500 people who got access that way to the social security system.
te geven om een contract van
We've talked about it.
Een tweede element is dat we ook verder
been working on permanent contracts, on career development. We've been working with our team in order to organize trainings for our members. Then there's one more thing that was mentioned during the activity report, the social elections. Social elections were held a bit late because of the first lockdown. It was the first time we were holding such elections. It was a legal obligation, and it was, in a way, for us, the opportunity to look at the role that our cooperators could play depending on their competencies. We are coop shareholders, but we are also workers. Therefore, a social dialogue was set, and the goal is now for the bodies that have been created to represent all the members of SMART, whether employees or freelancers. So we'll try to foster social dialogue. One more thing, if I may. Mass Brussels. Mass Brussels took place last year with Travi. Travi is the company that created it. It was a spontaneous initiative. The goal was to create masks in a proper way, and we wanted people who create masks to get some wage. Obviously, we still commit at the national and international level to foster cooperatives. For instance, we've created a working platform. We drafted recommendations on our work to the European Commission. So we've been tackling the issue of social rights of workers, workers' empowerment, social changes, cooperative movements. All of this was tackled in a letter to the European Commission. We kept on working on those topics with different partners throughout the year. And finally, we had a specific meeting, such as big rencontre in France. One final element Let me look at my notes. Just one final example.
Smart in Progress, waar de voorbije
It is about the participative process, Smart in Progress. We've drafted 150 recommendations within Smart in Progress. These recommendations are part of the 2020-2025 strategy. And one last thing regarding the training plan. So the training plan was created for the coop members, and we created online trainings during the year. We organized 98 online trainings in a total, with more than 1,000 participants. It was quite successful because they were well organized online. So maybe we should keep offering such virtual trainings online. If you want more information, look at the website where you will find more information.
Okay, so before we ask you to leave from behind and not in front of the camera so that people watching us do not see you, let's launch a little music for the next session, which is the stock count for 2020.
Et j'invite alors Déborah.
Now, I would like to invite Deborah Fischer from the company auditor's office to join us. Deborah will be working with you for 2 years. She's going to sit next to me. And we also have Maxime Duchesne, deputy co-trustee, one of our trustees, and also one of the directors of SMART in charge of international development. But we'll come back to this. Anna, how are you doing? Very well, thank you. So what about this report? We're quite stressed out. We hope that this report is good. Well, for the consolidated accounts of the SMART Group, the auditor's report has some reservations on fixed assets and especially on some participations and debts that we have from entities abroad, and especially the ones outside of France. So we still need to work on this, but for the rest, we can see that things have progressed a lot since last year. As for the report on the Cooperative itself, well, we have a report with a positive opinion without any reservation, so which is an improvement from last year, since we did a lot of work to improve the quality of accounting closure, and of course, this is visible in the report. Now, if I can still say a few words, I would like to thank the accounting and finance teams from SMART who have worked with us in collaboration in a remarkable way, and especially in those difficult times when we all have to work remotely. It was not that easy, and collaboration was very good. It was excellent. So I'd like to thank you for this. We can give them a round of applause. Yes. On the other hand, I would like to highlight also, because I think it is important that some big efforts have been done to improve the accounting procedures, the accounting books, internal checks and controls. So this takes time. Not everything is perfect yet, but compared to last year, we have made a lot of progress in several areas. So I wanted to highlight this, and this way we can close the accounts in a more serene manner and more efficiently. So this is a positive thing that I would like to highlight. Thank you very much for this. And again, I would like to thank the teams who have worked very hard to produce these results. So this is very good for the future. Now, let's continue to read the first two resolutions that you will have to vote on. The first one is linked to different documents that have just been submitted. That's the approval of accounts and reports for the activities, social goal, the company auditors for the 2020 fiscal year. And so after reading the activity report, the management report, the social impact report, and the report of the company auditor approve all of these reports and accounts and gives discharge to the trustees for their management mandates. So the second motion is the assignment of results, net results for 2020. So the result is minus 5,380,514 euros and 173,000 euros for Smart Coop. As for the statutes setting out the non-distribution of results or profits, a General Assembly decides to assign those results to the non-shareable provisions, allowing the cooperative to do investments according to the decisions made by the board. Now, we're going to look at a presentation on the cooperative. We're going to look at the document that will tell us how our cooperative is doing. I think we are one of the 27,000 cooperative organizations. The slide is coming. Okay, we'll come back to this later on, I'm told, for the cooperative organization, but I think that we are about 27,000 cooperation members. Now, I would like to go back to the resolution you have to vote on, unless we look at other topics with Maxime and Anne-Laure.
Allez. Je crois qu'on va passer au
I think we're going to look at prospects. Thomas, you have the floor. Okay.
We hebben het al gezegd, we kijken tijdens deze
Okay, yes, as we said during this General Assembly, we're not just looking at what happened over the past 12 months, but we also look towards the future. And this is why we invited again Maxime Dechaine. He's going to tell us about 2020-2024 with Françoise Kemajou, who is going to start right after the little music.
Faut chanter. Aan jullie het woord. Vas-y.
You have the floor.
Oui, rebonjour. Alors, il y a toujours un petit problème de
Hello again.
slide. On n'a pas,
So,
le support.
and we have the slides out on the screen. So we're going to have to improvise. Okay, we'll improvise. So,
D'abord un petit rappel.
maybe a brief reminder.
Avant ça,
Before that, before telling you about the participatory source that we're going to see on the screen, the latest General Assembly, before setting up the cooperative in the General Assembly, we had discussed and then finally voted on a strategy for a plan that was called a Smart 2020. As it says, Smart 2020 was the work until 2020. Not everything was finalized, of course. And we're not going to take some stock, but of course, since we've passed 2020, we have to redefine a strategy. We have to define the next 5-year vision and the axes we want to work on in order to be able to do this in the next 5 years. So we launched a process that will allow us to vote on a strategy for the next 4 years and not 5 years. Okay, so the process, well, this is a process that did not call on to consultants to tell us what the strategy should be, but this is a process that called on to all our institutions to work on that. So we have 150 recommendations that were made for the past 4 years based on a proposal of our delegate administration.
aux 3 CA,
Well, board was submitted to the 3 boards.
France, Belgique, Coop et Fondation.
So Belgique Hope Foundation, and the third one worked with the delegate administration. And then some proposals have been slightly changed. I think that we played our role to be critical and to point at positive things and things not going in the right direction, to finally have the document that you have now, which has been voted on by the 3 boards, and that you have to vote on during this General Assembly. So that's for the collective or collaborative drafting. Well, this is a word that was quite linear. This is not a recommendation of a downstream proposal, but everybody was involved. So, like I said, a strategy is
un peu la mission que Smart se donnait.
the mission that SMART had, and we defined 6 axes in order to achieve that. So a brief reminder of this mission. Well, we want to guarantee and strengthen the autonomy, the security for all the workers who need it, who wish for that, and who want to be more autonomous in their work, looking for empowerment. So we propose to share some collective enterprise, collective companies. So that's our objective, let's say. And in order to reach this objective, well, to fulfill this mission, we have identified 6 axes. So the first one is to diversify audiences. Indeed, the company is comprised of many people with different backgrounds, people who want to develop their project in different ways. So the first thing is to retain people who are with us already and to prevent that they go out for so many reasons. The second one is to open new fields of activities, and being already diversified for a few years now allowed us to be a resilient company, at least during this COVID crisis. And finally, as I said at the beginning, we are all different. And I think it is time that SMART looks for different people who are different in terms of genders, in terms of social categories, of different backgrounds, many differences that will have in common the will to develop their economic project in an organization that will provide some general protection.
Le deuxième axe, on a presque une.
So for the second axis, of course, the 6 axes are linked, and there's some consistency there. But for the second one, designing services, a former French minister says you have to go from a service for all to a service for each one. So if we have a diversity amongst our members, people who are working at different economic level, working in different fields, well, then we cannot provide a one-size-fits-all response. So we have to develop our services further so as to better match people's needs. So
personnes plus évoluées.
Maybe people who have more evolved projects or people who need to invest. Well, that could be a 0% loan that was presented before that allows to invest in your project or to go on to the next level or to fund some transformation or, well, anything that allows you or allows us to match the needs of our members and to adapt to demand.
Alors, soutenir les activités économiques, je trouve que le titre...
Number 3 is supporting economic activities. It may sound strange, but in order to support the activities of our members, maybe we need to provide better support or different support. I think this is the ambition of this axis. And whether we provide social, economic, or cooperative support, it should be some support for each one that would match the time you're in, that so that people can develop their projects within SMART, and then to make their project last within SMART. And for this, we need to find different types of support.
Je pense que c'est à peu près tout pour cet axe-là.
I think that's about it for this one, Maxime. Yes, the next one.
Du quotidien,
Well, that's a bit outside of our daily work, of projects. That's the democratic access, sharing the company. We want to be democratic. It is in our statutes because we want one person, one vote. But we need to try to think how this democracy can be done in our organization. Of course, there is a general assembly electing the board. So within SMART, 3/5 come from the companies that we have working daily. But there is also SMART in progress that existed that has to change now. Local democracy, we are experimenting with decentralized General Assembly. So we have to keep thinking about this to see how SMART can be in the next 5 years.
à l'écoute et piloté par ces sociétés.
To listen more to our members and to listen to as many members as possible. Number 5, supporting a political project. You know, when an organization is set up to meet some needs that the political authorities do not match. I think that this is a political project. So in order to have some impact, we need to represent some political weight. And for this, we need to develop at the European level, maybe the international level, and to have some influence at all the decision levels. And the last one, the work access, we need to discuss and strengthen the economic model. Well, this is something that was quite obvious during this COVID year. You know, if the model, if the economic model or structure is not strong enough, if the economic model is not reliable, at the end of the day, we might end up without this common tool to work. So we need to strengthen this economic model, but we also decided to discuss it, to have a debate about this. This was done in the very first Smart in Progress. That was one of the 4 topics before we set up the cooperative. So 4 or 5 years later, it's time to ask the question again. An economic model is 2 things. How much do we contribute to the common part, how much each one is going to contribute, and what do we fund with that? So that's a way in the future. Well, this is a short-term objective in the next 2 years, rather than saying it's going to take 4 years. To put this on the table again, to have a debate within the community. So we have a strong economic model, but we need to discuss it and debate this with everyone.
Dank u wel, Françoise en Maxime, voor deze toelichting.
Thank you very much, Françoise and Maxime, for these explanations about the 2025 strategy. Now, I suggest that with Sébastien Paul, we'll look at the international strategy. Good afternoon, everyone. There was a workshop at 1 p.m. today dedicated to the international development strategy. Now I'm going to show you a few facts in just a few minutes. I have one slide that shows the elements that I would like to highlight. So when we talk about international development for SMART, this is not the European football competition, but with the Netherlands, Sweden, Germany, Austria, and Italy. So we have great teams that will go far, I hope. But some key points about 2020. Well, 2020 was, as it was the case everywhere, so far since 2014-15, we've been developing these projects, but there was some strong growth, regular growth, but unfortunately, 2020 is a year that was affected by COVID-19, so we have a slowing down of the growth that we had everywhere. And then there is one thing that started in 2019 and again in 2020, that is some realities and maybe the end of a few myths, and that's important for what will come next. So amongst these few things is that 6.5%, this is the Belgian model. Of course, this is only one part of the resources of the cooperative in Belgium, and most countries have contribution rates around 6, 7, 8%, and they don't have the same mechanisms that it is the case in Belgium for mutualization. So some people are working on this to add resources to this 6.5% or 7%, depending on the country's choice, or to increase those contributions. We'll come back to this. Something else that is important, that's the tool, the single tool. For a very long time, we thought that we could design an IT tool, a European tool that would work for everyone. We realized at some point that maybe that was not the right way, that it would take a lot of time, it would be very costly, and maybe this was a myth. So we decided to set up solutions country per country, and they've been working hard on this for a year to increase productivity and to reach the objectives we set out. Last thing that was a stock count for this year is that the resources brought by Belgium are not unlimited. Of course, we had to make the decision, well, the board made the decision to stop developing in Hungary because we've invested for a few years there, but because there was no development or activity, not enough members, we decided to let this activity go dormant in Hungary. An important decision that was made in November 2020 by the Cooperative and the Fondation is that we, for different reasons, and I won't come back to this, obvious reasons, politically speaking and others, we decided to keep investing, but with conditions. And these conditions is that, so we give 3 years to the 6 countries that I mentioned to reach a balance, so that at the end of 2023, their balance sheet is around 0, or at least to start making profits or to be able to break even. So we'll do this with some support and also with some regular assessments every 6 months. I hope we'll have some elements that will allow us to change or make corrections so that in 2023 we don't have bad surprises. And the in return, we'll get some predictability. So we have determined that in 2021, 22, and 23, a budget is forecast 21.5 million, for 22 1 million, so 1.5 in 2021, and this is investment resources for the capital, and 623,000 for 2023. So in the board, we've had a lot more transparency. We improved the information. There was a seminar. The decision-making, as I said, was necessary. And then within our partners, there was a better involvement, better exchanges, and the links have been strengthened. So we are encouraging collective projects on the envelope we presented before. And to conclude, the first few results that we can see, because we are in 2021, we already see good quality progress, and we think that these were the right choices to make. So we have improved a lot financial information, strategic planning. That was a step forward, a leap forward. We can always improve, but there was some improvement. And in a certain number of countries, Sweden, Austria, and Germany, if I'm not mistaken, some local public funding that were found to develop tools. So that's going in the right direction. And recently in Austria, for example, the General Assembly voted quite a significant increase to 10% for the contribution. So things are changing, and we're quite optimistic for the future, for the goal set out by the board last November. Thank you, Sébastien. Thank you, Maxime and Françoise, for these presentations, especially for the international level. I would like to thank Deborah again for her presentation, her collaboration, and we're going to set her free. Thank you. See you soon. I'm going to ask Anne-Laure to come and join us, because in a moment we might need her for answering your questions. So do not hesitate to share your feedback or ask questions on social media. We'll have a little time, but we'll answer some questions. I'm being told in my earpiece that we are close to the number of votes of last year, so you have almost 20 minutes, about 20 minutes to vote, so don't forget to vote. So, Thomas, can we come back to resolution number 3? We found the slide. So on the 31st of December 2020, we had 268 members. So I let you read the rest of the slide. And you have all the details about the membership, and you will find all these resolutions on our website. Thomas, you have the floor for resolution number 4. Yes, indeed. So as a conclusion, we have a 4th resolution. So we set up some strategy to implement it without limiting it. So the plan comes from some collective drafting. So this was fed by the Smart Progress process and some the work of the delegate board and the board. This plan was discussed, amended, and then validated by them. The Assembly General, after reading this document, approved the strategic plan for 2025. So now we're going to have a Q&A session.
Maxime, Anne-Laure, Françoise.
So, Maxime, Anne-Laure, and Sébastien, thank you for being with us. There is a first question I would like to turn to Maxime. This is linked to a presentation on the activity report by Pierre Danez on insurances. He mentioned that Smart is a shared company that offers protection on a certain number of risks. Could you explain again those insurances? And the question was about what kind of insurances can we benefit from when it comes to hardware. So could you explain us what we have in terms of insurances? I'll try, but I cannot guarantee that I will give you a very precise answer to this precise question. So for insurances, we have 3 main types of insurances. You have the
qui est étendu aux
accident at work insurance that is extended to the private insurance for a year. So as a worker, if you get injured, there's also the civil responsibility insurance that is you doing some work, you're an entrepreneur or employee worker, if you cause damages to other people or their properties. If, for example, while painting, you splash the client's car, you have an insurance for this. And there is another insurance which is quite special, the mobility insurance that covers some. It's some kind of assistance when you're traveling abroad. So these are the three main insurances that we have within Smart. For hardware insurance, this is something we've heard many times. I know that there's some work underway about this, but I cannot tell you whether now if we have some insurances covering some type of equipment or whether the work is still underway. I'm sorry, but I don't have a precise answer to this question. Maybe I can try to find it for a later Q&A session. Maybe I'll have the answer to this question.
All right, thank you, Maxime. In a couple of seconds, I will give the floor to Thomas, who has a question as well. But first, I would like to turn to Sébastien. Sébastien, you talked about the international perspectives. And regarding what you've mentioned, I wanted to know whether new smarts would be possible in 2021. We've heard about the will of creating smart cooperatives in Europe, even beyond. Well, thank you for that question. Indeed, several times per month we are contacted by cities, municipalities, institutions, or freelancers, cooperative owners, and so on the 5 continents.
Vraiment et régulièrement. Et comme je l'expliquais tout à l'heure, le focus qu'on veut vraiment
What we truly want to do in the next 3 years is
l'équilibre économique
to
des 6 pays européens dans lesquels on a
find an economic balance in the 6 countries where we are operating. What we are doing for the US, Singapore, Australia, Portugal, and Finland, and so on, all those countries where there are initiatives, is to bring resources, send support letters for subsidies, and so on. So we are present, but not financially. We just give time, so to speak, to those projects. After 2023, we consider creating an incubator in order to better structure our support to those initiatives. And maybe in the future there will be another way to develop within SMART. Maybe we'll support those cooperatives to get support, financial support, subsidies and so on, instead of bringing financial support ourselves. In any case, it is very interesting to see that there are people across the 5 continents that are interested in SMART. Well, thank you very much, Sébastien. We also have a question from a Dutch speaker, from Maxime, so maybe he can use his headset. Question from Angélique about the company law, corporate law, that we had recently in Belgium. When are we going to use the new form of company? And then the second question is about the digital signature of document. When will it be possible in SMART?
Alors, je suis pas certain de comprendre la...
Well, I'm not sure I got the question right.
Je suis pas sûr de comprendre la première partie de la question
At
exactement.
least the first part of the question.
Par contre, pour la deuxième,
Regarding the second question that was asked, I feel like the digital signature
de façon numérique, est possible.
by customer is possible in most of the frameworks.
Est possible
The signature for the quotations is possible except in one case. This is when you have a new customer. When you have a new customer,
malheureusement en papier et qui passe.
you have to do it on paper. So it's a manual process
On aimerait bien.
which is verified.
Je peux pas donner une.
We'd like to find a digital solution to that issue. I cannot tell you when it will be done, but we are going more and more digital. We can sign contracts digitally. You can sign quotes most of the time. When it comes to the expenses and expenses forms, you can sign most of them
De frais avec les conseillers.
digitally.
Dans le futur, l'idée ce serait que ce
In
soit
the future,
télécharger ces pièces
it would be
justifiées.
even better to upload the
Vers la
expense bills
sur le cas précis
on the platform immediately.
client pour les nouveaux clients. Bah, ça, un jour on y passera, mais je
So at the moment, the only process that is manual is when you
le papier.
have new customers. So this is paper. We know it belongs to the past. It is bad for the environment, so we'll go digital someday. Thank you very much for those answers. We'll have a second Q&A session, but I suggest we stop for a moment. I thank the different people that were with us. I tell them
C'est l'instant.
that we will see them later on. You have 10 more minutes to vote, and the floor is to Thomas. Thank you very much, Yvon. Now we'll talk about the governance of our organization. Do we have a jingle?
Het bestuur van een organisatie als Smart vraagt een heel specifieke aanpak. We tackelen niet
Management of an organization like SMART requires a very specific
de makkelijkste manier van besturen, maar wel
solution. We have a cooperative approach. It's not always the best management option, but this is the most inspiring one.
En laat het nu net die raad van bestuur zijn die vandaag herverkozen wordt. Er zijn trouwens nog, als ik goed tel, 8
Members
om te stemmen op de nieuwe leden van
of
de
the
raad.
board today will have to be elected, and we will conclude the votes in 8 minutes. I will now give the floor to my colleague Stéphane Lefebvre, who will tell you more about the election of the new board. Yes, thank you very much indeed. The board is reaching the end of its 4-year term. This is the first board that was created.
Élu par les sociétaires
It was elected by the COP members
de manière collégiale.
who managed the company together. The board is made up of 7 to 18
Minimum d'hommes.
directors,
De ce conseil d'administration sont
minimum 40% for each gender.
catégorie A, c'est comme ça qu'on
We have
ce sont
members from the category A and from categories B and C. So category A is people that have an economic activity in SMART. They represent 3/5 of this board. And then we have category B and C. Category B is members of the mutualized team, and category C is external people, whether
les missions
legal person
fixées à la fois par la loi, le code
or natural persons,
à la fois par les statuts, nos statuts de coopérative, et à la fois par le règlement d'ordre intérieur.
We have our status that explain how the board is supposed to work. Its missions is define the strategy of SMART. ensure its operational implementation and measure its impact on the environment.
Un petit peu spécifique et aussi de pouvoir faire participer l'ensemble de sa communauté.
SMART wants the whole community to be part of the decisions.
Participatif et notamment Smart in
This is why we have a participative approach that is showcased by Smart in Progress.
Il impulse et définit les processus
We have a
participatifs.
legal framework with participative and participatory processes.
Et appuie l'administration déléguée, détermine les grandes lignes
The board determines the main
au niveau RH,
strategic decisions, including in terms of human resources, and takes decisions on topics that have an impact on the economic model.
l'administration est renouvelée.
This year, the board is renewed. We've launched a call for a proposal end of April with online forms
Et il y a eu
that were available in April and May.
en ligne
All the
c'est en fait présenté
people that applied to be members of the board
et puis
had the chance to present themselves on our website, and I will now let you present the different candidates. Thank you very much, Germain. Before we conclude the vote, it will be in 4 minutes. You have 4 minutes to vote. We have a fifth resolution regarding the election of the new board.
Kandidatuur voor de verkiezing van de Raad van Bestuur en stemt voor de volgende
So,
kandidaat. Dan
after
is straks de kandidaten overlopen. En effet, nous allons donc passer
having knowledge of all that was said, we decide to vote for the following candidates.
Vervolgens hebben we Pierre Danens ook voor de categorie A.
So we have different candidates. Atea Missi, category A. Pierre Danens, category A. Samuel Desguin, category C. Leila Taberner, category A. Pierre Vreven,
Depuis longtemps impliqué dans le projet SMART,
who's
catégorie C.
been committed in SMART for a very long time, category C. Farah Elhour, category A.
Maxime Dechaine,
Maxime Dechaine,
ses dépenses de campagne
to tell me that he has invested a lot in his campaign, category B. Françoise Kimajou, category C, for solidarity.
Hugo Van den Driesch, catégorie
Hugo van den Driesche, category A.
Johan Janssens.
Johan Janssens, category A as well.
Jacques Debris, catégorie
Jacques Debris, category C.
qui nous vient de Fédécop.
Jacques, who comes from Fedecop.
Vervolgens collega Adrien Vastenakes, categorie
Our
B.
colleague Adrien Vastenayken, category B.
Yann-Pierre Leluyer, catégorie
Yann-Pierre Leluyer,
nous regarde certainement
category A. I'm sure he's
avec toute son équipe
viewing this General Assembly at the very moment.
Gliner sluit aan.
Fabien Gliner, category A.
Antea Missi,
Antea Missi, category A, but I think this is a mistake because she's on my right and it's not Antea Missi but Isabelle. Isabelle, who is already part of the board but is posing to renew her term. Then Amaury Agman, category B. Marie-Françoise Wierix, category B. Marie-Françoise, hello, if you are watching us.
Anne-Laure de Grie, categorie C.
And Anne-Laure Degris, category C.
Sabrina Nissen.
You also have Sabrina Nissen, category C from Coop City. But after some technical issues, unfortunately, she cannot present herself this year. We'll look at it in the future. So the votes that are for her will be withdrawn. Rosa Rochman, category A as well. And I think this is it. We've been through all the candidates. Good luck to all the candidates. You have 1 minute left. Votes end at 5:15 p.m. and I will now give the floor to Thomas for the two Next, resolutions. Indeed, 2 more resolutions to present. 35 seconds remaining if you want to vote. Very briefly, let me go through the resolutions. Resolution 6 is about Smart in Progress. After several years implementing Smart in Progress with more than 200 recommendations that were drafted and a strategy for 2025 that was drafted based on this, and numerous other projects on the way, the period 2021-2022 will not focus on any topic. We'll dedicate that period in an assessment. We'll look at the recommendations that have been implemented, so we'll review them, and we will experiment so that recommendations can be applied by the members. So this is resolution 6. We have resolution 7 now. This is technical resolution regarding the election and the powers. The General Assembly grants all powers to people elected so that they can ensure all the tasks that are required.
On pourra encore peut-être prolonger de 5 petites minutes la clôture des votes pour s'assurer que tout le monde a eu l'occasion.
All right, so we've had the 7 resolutions. This is the end of the vote. And I will look at our guests, Julien, Charles, Marie, and Isabelle. I will give you the floor. I don't know who's going to take the floor first, but the idea is to have a feedback on your years within the board, because this is the end of the cycle, but it could be renewed for some of you. Marielle, you have the floor. Thank you very much, Yvon. I will review the 4 years of our term as administrators. June 2017, the General Assembly elected a board for Smart Coop. We were 18 administrators elected for 4 years. 18 members of the board, different profiles, but a lot of energy and enthusiasm. A lot of experience within boards, a lot of things to discover. A member of the board, Pierre Danen, is also part of the board of the foundation. And he gives us an historical perspective. We started our term by finding an agreement on the frequency of our meetings, on agreeing on the different topics that we had to tackle, and so on. The first 2-day seminar took place in Lille during the winter. All the different departments present us their goal. We discover a smart center, we discover Bazar Saint-Saul, we discover the Lille city center as well. The goal was to create some dynamic. The board is a body in which you have to work together, and you need to know each other to work together. One of the members of the boards decided to leave us in end 2017. We kept working as a group of 17. 2018, second year of our term, we kept working with Smart Coop and the different entities of the group. We think about the governance. Several administrators take part in different working groups. Our annual seminar takes place in Ghent, a city that we discover. Another administrator resigns. 2 don't really work a lot with us. It was a very calm year. In 2019, we have our 3rd year. We keep working on governance. The life of the board is quite dynamic, and there's a lot of changes. Indeed, we have another administrator that decides to leave. The 3 boards, Smart Coop, Foundation, and Smart France, decide to include Maxime and Anne-Laure to the board. We get to know them, and they get to know us.
Nous partageons nos attentes mutuelles.
We share our mutual expectations.
Nous développons une nouvelle dynamique.
We develop a new dynamic, a new way of functioning, and we get the boards from Belgium and France closer. We have our next meeting in Liège. Members of the boards from Belgium and France take part in a program. We set the new strategic plan and keep reflecting on governance. 2 members of the board resign as well. In March 2020, there's the COVID-19 pandemic. We are in a crisis management mode. We keep meeting virtually with the members of the board because a lot of decisions have to be taken.
Juin 2020. Début de notre dernière année de mandat.
We have our General Assembly that is virtual. Then, 2021.
2020, séminaire sur les entités internationales de
or 2020, still 2020. We have some seminars in summer, but not in winter because of the COVID-19 pandemic. We consider how we can organize the next board, and some of the administrators consider renewing for a second term.
Nous y consacrons plusieurs CA. Je passe maintenant la parole à
A
Isabelle.
lot of board meetings tackled the COVID-19 pandemic for Belgium and France. Now the word for Isabelle. Well, as you all know, our plans have been disrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic, including within the board. We had set goals, but we were disrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic. We were forced to change the way we were working. There were some difficulties, just like in all the companies. Within the board, we are not always at the heart of the machine. We needed to get data, figures, to know what was going on. So it was a very particular context. But the people, remaining people, are motivated. We were asked for information. We received information from the other smart managers and authorities. We received support from the members from SMART. And obviously SMART wanted to develop. SMART had its own plans, but there were also some disruptive events with the COVID-19 pandemic. Management teams had a lot of work, whether in Belgium and France. With the board, we've been there to support the management teams. We were there to support them while still being there to correct them when necessary. It was a very instructive period for all of us. I wanted to remind you that SMART is an open group. We've talked about the bigger meeting. These are moments during which we meet with other cooperatives. So there's some knowledge sharing, experience sharing. So SMART is open to the world and wants to share. The bigger meetings are open to all freelancers working within SMART. Unfortunately, last year it did not take place, obviously. This year we know that we'll have meetings in Bigre end of August. So this is a time to experiment and to reflect about the future of cooperatives. And now I will give the floor to Julien, who will tell us about
qu'est-ce qu'il pourrait nous proposer comme vision de futur.
The vision of the future.
Il y a un élément qui est évident parce qu'on sort du confinement, il y a cette sortie du
reprise des activités. Well, you know, we had the end of the lockdown, an economic recovery. an economic relaunch, at least, within SMART. We
éventuellement à des nouveaux besoins des utilisateurs.
wanted to make sure that our services were adapted to the needs of our members. To do that, we started implementing the 2025 strategy, but we had also continuous intelligence, the goal being to support all the members of SMART. We opened up our offices, and on behalf of the Cedre, I'd like to thank all the teams for their work during the lockdowns. Now the different offices will be reopened.
Ce soir, dans plusieurs antennes et pendant toute la journée. Cette réouverture des bureaux,
and we are looking forward to it. We remained in contact with the different teams of SMART, and the goal would be to revitalize the participation in SMART. You know, for 2 years we've been meeting virtually. Our work has been disrupted. The goal would be to revitalize democracy. This is one of the aspects we wanted to mention today. And we've had great synergies with the board of the foundation, with the delegated administrators, with the board as well. Members of the board now take part in many meetings, so the new board can be supported by all those entities. Moreover, some members of the current board are trying to be re-elected. I hope that they will succeed in order to lead the board. Obviously, there are many challenges, including institutional challenges. All of this will evolve, so to speak, and in a way we'll have to reflect about what cooperatives such SMART will become. And the final aspect that we've also mentioned this afternoon
qu'il faut continuer à consolider le modèle de SMART. C'est-à-dire qu'il faut trouver les meilleurs
moyens. The consolidation of SMART. We must find ways to strengthen solidarity between members, whether in Belgium or France.
Il ne faut pas perdre ça de vue dans la tempête qui
Let's not forget about this solidarity
au moins de l'administration déléguée.
In terms of crisis.
Notre intention sur ce point, c'est de veiller à la solidarité.
We want to make sure we keep on working in solidarity in Belgium, in France, and between Belgium and France. This is a work that is underway. We'll keep working on it in the future, and beyond the political powers and the administrations, we have to work with all the people that share the values of SMART. There's a true challenge in that regard. We have to make SMART more visible for people that share its values and to the public authorities. The lockdown has proved us that it is important for SMART to progress. But given that SMART is not protected by the social security system as it exists today, we always have to repeat again and again that we share those values, and we must keep explaining exactly what is our model and how it works, so that we are more supported by our partners and by the authorities. This is how we what would we suggest for the future? Well, thank you very much for those words. And maybe a round of applause for the members of the board for all the energy you've committed over the past 4 years.
Vous y avez mis beaucoup de cœur et je ne doute pas.
You've committed a lot, and I am sure that the future members of the board will do the same. I am told that the votes are over now. We are now counting the votes, and I will give the floor to my colleague Thomas. Thank you very much, Yvon.
Tijd voor een jingle.
It is now time for another jingle.
Tijd voor ons volgende thema. Smart in Progress is
So it is now the time to talk about the next topic, Smart in Progress. This is a process that has been underway for some time. This is the 5th cycle of workshops that we finished this year. In the meantime, some smart partners have organized already this workshop. So I'm going to ask my colleague Germain Lefebvre to come and join us, and he's going to explain to us what is the procedure.
Als we nog een jingle hebben, laat maar komen.
Voilà,
Okay, if we can play a bit more music, as there seems to be a technical issue.
Mais Thomas, Smart in Progress, c'est quelque chose que tous les sociétaires peuvent prendre part?
Maybe the members can take part. Yes, I think so. I think that our colleague Germain is going to give a bit more explanations. Yes, so Smart in Progress is a participatory process, the main one, in fact, within SMART. So it's the backbone, if you like. It doesn't have to be the unique participation space, if you like, but this is the one that we've had for 5 years. This is the end of the 5th year in Belgium, the 2nd year in France. So this way we could set the few stones of this cooperative, but at the same time to develop this over time, to have a continuous development of the SMART project. So the principle is to have topics validated at the board, some working groups working on these topics, and making recommendations. And these recommendations are not automatic projects. It's not automatically implemented right away, because we need to give priorities, to further precise some parts, and then to find the resources to implement that. So before we start 2021, we already had 150 aggregated recommendations in this process, and that was mentioned before. That has allowed to work around the 2025 strategy. So this year, 4 topics have been validated in the board in June last year: the support issue, the New Horizon post-sanitary crisis, the gender equality, and some redistribution mutualization. Is that a viable economic model? So some recommendations have been made, and you can find them online. They have been made public, disseminated. And usually the board has the time to study these recommendations before the General Assembly, and usually we report on them once they have been studied by the board. So this time we decided to spend a bit more time on this. So I said that last year, before we started the process, we already had 150. So we're adding 87 new recommendations. So this is growing fast in terms of volume. And we can see that there are very interesting things in recommendations. There are new things. There are things that echo something that already exists, but we would like to go further in studying these recommendations, to redraft it, to maybe merge them, and to add a schedule to them because, we are validating a strategy for 2025, so we need to get organized in terms operationally. So Smart in Progress this year took place almost 100% in video conferences remotely. Some offices managed to organize some meetings, but video conferences has advantages and drawbacks. It can cut distances to take part, and at the same time it can create different distances within the group's lives. So several hundred people have been connected to or involved in this process, and they could follow this approach from the first information to drafting recommendations or making recommendation presentations. And this year, we try to get some tools to document as much as possible the meeting minutes so as to make this work transparent, to keep some traces of that and to give some visibility and to allow a different type of participation than just participating in the working groups. So discovering this during the process with digital tools, especially. For next year, next year, in fact, we would like not to open new topics as we do each year, but next year we will have a break year. You can call this as you wish, but it's not about doing nothing, but it's after the 5 editions of Smart in Progress, let's take stock of this process. Let's draw some lessons, whether positive or negative things. As I said before, we can see that the recommendations are still being produced in terms of volumes, large volumes, and there are similar topics. So let's take the time to assess this process. Let's also share the stock camp, what happened to these recommendations, because very often there some recommendations have been made. Where are we for the implementation? We often mention some examples. For example, the ethics committee, they will have a presentation later on and financial presentation. So let's take the time. We cannot do a presentation of the 150 presentations, but you can see out of these recommendations, this is where we are. So we would like to share this maybe with some educational support documents and to make visible what Smart in Progress has transformed within Smart. And last thing, for the coming year, we would like to experiment recommendations made directly by the members, not expect the Smart organization to make recommendations, but some recommendations can be implemented on a low scale. Don't necessarily need to implement this within Smart, and for this we would like to provide some assets and resources, as we did for Smart in Progress animation, to follow those experimentations and to draw some lessons and to see how they are being deployed. So a few examples of things happening. There are some people, some members in Brussels who would like to discuss some topics and take some momentum about this and to keep on feeding this that matches some recommendations that were made. There are some movements also with local committees in France getting organized and managed by members, if I'm not mistaken. There was also an article on this in the activity report. So we are opening a new year where we take the time to look at what happened to make the progress transparent for people and to challenge the process so as to take a new start. Okay, new start for new adventures. Thank you, Germain, for this overview on Smart in Progress and the next steps. And you're going to leave us for some time. Maybe we'll see you again. So that's the end of the session on Smart in Progress, and we're going to look at the Ethics Committee now.
Et pour ce faire, notre collègue Sarah Deuche, que vous avez vu...
Sarah Deuche, you might have seen with us if you followed the session about Mondragon. So Sarah, you are in the Ethics Committee and you were able to follow the latest development of this committee. Tell us more. Well, the Ethics Committee is an organization that came from the first cycle of Smart in Progress. We wanted to have an ethics committee within Smart in Progress SIP to report to the General Assembly. So there were 10 of us this year. We worked a lot in video conferences. We had 10 meetings throughout the year. And 2 away days took place in February to consolidate the group, because it's good to work in a trust atmosphere, and especially after 1 year of video conferences. There was a more dedicated session this morning and one yesterday where we could exchange with the members about the content and the issues that the Ethics Committee deals with. There's also a report you can find on the website. Smart website. In 2019, that was the beginning. We learned to better work. We specify the way it works. And 2020 is really the year where we tackled topics and made our first recommendations. So we tackled 13 cases, and I'm just going to do a brief summary here. So we talked a lot about different cases that were linked to expenditures in terms of subcontracting or recruiting workers, or the raw materials we use in our activities, or by the SMART organization itself. So, for example, for the members' activities, we wanted to know whether in their activities it was possible to recruit auto-entrepreneurs, or there were questions like, can we accept that SMART calls on to low-cost flights when we know that those employees work in poor conditions. There was another recommendation made within SMART, that is the eco-responsible unit. So we wanted to make recommendations on the ethical aspect of purchasing. So we have to be careful about the way things are produced, the environmental footprint, and trying to buy sustainable raw material locally if possible, and produced by cooperatives or members of our cooperatives. But these are changes that should take place over time, and this is important for us. And so we've had exchanges with the central purchasing. They explained to them what they were doing, so we made a recommendation to them. And we explained that we had to set up some central purchasing, and having a list of references, that would be a first step. And so we decided to focus on to be role model, and to collect information about sustainable, ethical suppliers, so as to incite our members to have the same ethical behaviors in their consumption through information, by providing information. And it is important at the same time to welcome our members wherever they are, whether they're stable, beginners. We need to raise the awareness of our members to this ethical consumption and give them the tools such as information. And so this is some work we have to do over time. We also talked about remuneration of people taking part in working groups, such as the ethics committee, but not only, because we realized that some people were remunerated in the working groups, some others were not. That was an issue. And we also discussed the eligibility of some activities. So can we accept that a member has, as a client, arm dealers, even if it's just to do graphic activities? And when we think that our members do not do what they claim to do, what do we do? And since these were new recommendations, so we worked in closer collaboration with operational management because whether it's ethical or legal is not the same thing. So we could better coordinate our actions and recommendations. And at the end of 2020, there were some complaints of members concerning smart services. And what the committee has to do is there's an ethical question or not. So we reported to the operational management, but we also dealt with another question, that is, how do we take the complaints of members as a cooperative? And we thought that we should have a place to centralize those complaints. We should be able to find a way to have a better organized mediation process. At the same time, we realized that this was a complicated year for everyone, for the members, for the cooperative, and SMART had to set up some things that were not our core business, and this has an impact on the quality of service. But then we realized that complaints stopped, but this is still work underway and working good collaboration. These are the main topics, and I invite you to read the activity report. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you to all the members of this ethical committee.
Ceci clôture cette section liée au...
This is the end of this session on the Ethics Committee. And now we're going to move on to a new Q&A session. So we'll be able to answer the questions. So Maxime, Anne-Laure, Marielle, and Julien, please come and join us on stage.
Installez-vous, installez-vous. Alors, j'attends cette première question.
I'm waiting for the first question that should be about insurances. So we're going back slightly about the issue that had been asked to Maxime about insurances. So Maxime, while you were there, did you get an answer to that question?
J'avoue que j'ignore.
Non, j'ai eu les précisions.
Well, I got some information for the answer.
Comme ça. Partage la bonne nouvelle. L'administratrice qui était absente, Marie-Françoise.
Marie-Françoise, the trustee who was not here, she said she wrote to me and she said I have the answers. So she's doing well and she has the answer. So for the equipment purchased with the activity, not the property of the members, is insured. We have 4 different contracts. Of course, I will not go into the details, but as for any insurance, you know, there are conditions. We had the case of theft, but without breaking in. So the insurance said if nobody broke in, it's not covered. So of course there is some insurance policy for equipment, but there are different conditions. And for further information, do not hesitate to call your advisor. He will give you a more precise answer. Thank you, Maxime, for this information. I hope that it answered the question that was asked by Angélique, if I'm not mistaken. So, next question. Alors,
question qui s'affiche sur votre
a
écran.
question you have on the screen now.
Posée par Damien Noël. Pourquoi ne pas avoir
From
intégré
Damien Noël. Why not including friends to Sebastian's presentation concerning international development?
Alors pour deux raisons.
For two reasons, because for the 2020 fiscal year,
gestion.
We had a single management for France and Belgium, so the French results and Belgian results are included in the activity report that was presented before, and it can be something that we could change in the future. But we have identified for this year a consolidated presentation, France and Belgium, and not for the other Smart Europe, but for the 2020. I have informed for the future that this presentation might change for the General Assembly, for the results of 2021. Okay, there is a question concerning the different categories A, B, and C. Can you explain this?
A, B, C.
Alors, les sociétaires de catégorie A sont les utilisateurs de Smart, ceux qui bénéficient.
So it is people who benefit from services, those who want to do their activities through Smart. So for the A category, for the B category, that is the members who allow the category A to work. That is the shared team, the permanent team, if you want. It is the advisors and all the other teams in the four other managements. And for the C category, they are the Smart partners. They don't have a contract with Smart. They don't have a Smart contract, but they work with Smart B without having a employment relationship. And they're also the A category members during the latest General Assembly, they had set a threshold so that the members of the A category can be elected to the board only if they, how can I say this, only if they do a regular use of Smart. So that Smart really allows to secure their vocational background, people who really know Smart, people who don't use Smart just once in a while, and for whom we would have to explain everything again. So this must have an impact on their lives. So this is why we made this change in the statutes. Okay, thank you, Julien, for these positions. I see that you do master your ABCs, so this will be helpful for the members who voted for this renewal of mandates. Next question for Anne-Laure, and maybe Maxime can add on to that. I'm going to read it. Question from Seba Servet. What is this law that would like to kill Smart in France? Can it happen in Belgium? Well, there's probably a misunderstanding about the words. There's no specific law in France that would attack a particular cooperative. No, there can be some changes in regulations that every time we have to adapt the way we are organized. I think here this is referring to the strong crisis we've had, the unemployment agency crisis, as we call it, after last summer in September 2020. The administration, French administration, the unemployment agency, paying the unemployment benefits for cultural workers or artists, they said within a month you will not be able to recruit people who had the special status in France, which is an artist status, if you like, the intermittents. So we cannot use this type of contract within a month. We were refused the right to use this special artist status. So that was a real shock, and we are contesting this in court. But you know that courts can take a lot of time to judge cases. But in the meantime, France has lost more than 40% of turnover just because of this new decision. And after the COVID shock, this is a field that was already shut down because of COVID-19. So we still see that it's a big problem. They called it a slow poison yesterday in Lille. So this has put forward many difficulties. So we are getting organized to recover from this shock, but it requires a lot of mobilization in France. This is something very difficult.
Alors, est-ce que ça pourrait arriver en Belgique?
Could that happen in Belgium?
Bon, il y a cette expression, il faut jamais dire fontaine.
Well, you should never say never, you know, but
concrètement, tout peut arriver. Enfin, quand on mène un projet d'innovation sociale,
you know, when you do some social innovation project, it's not impossible that you have obstacles on the way. We cannot guess what happens. You know, anything can happen in the future. But what happened specifically in France is quite unlikely in Belgium. This is what I was saying in my introduction. For many reasons, because of our historical background and
de tentative de faire comprendre le modèle aux institutions.
We try to make Belgian institutions understand our model. We are better understood. And the social contributions and the COVID premium has been discussed directly with the authorities, and they really understood our model. So we are connected, and you know, the trade unions have difficult relationships. You know, we don't always agree on everything, but we try to have meetings and try to make progress on our divergences here in Belgium. So in this situation, maybe we are less. Maybe the authorities are more favorable to us here in Belgium, so having some attack, as it was the case in France, is less likely in Belgium than in France, and that's not a bad thing.
Dank u wel, Maxime en Anneloor, voor de toelichting.
Thank you very much, Maxime, for this explanation. So there was one more question.
Minder interessant uiteraard. Wat gebeurt er in geval van overlijden met het beschikbaar budget?
What is happening if someone dies? What is the budget for my activity? What will happen?
Vite traduite.
Bah, c'est encore moi.
For me again?
Mais celle-là, je sais répondre.
But I can answer this question.
Donc c'est une question qui se pose depuis des
So this is a question that's been around for years now, because in fact the money is, since it is invoiced by the cooperative, until it's been used to pay a salary or to reimburse a professional cost, it belongs to the cooperative. It doesn't mean it belongs to someone, but it's the asset of the cooperative. And so it's a bit complicated to have a salary paid or a travel cost reimbursed after you're deceased. So we try to find solutions because it's quite difficult. And this summer we decided some works have been prepared this year, but we really want to find a better organized solution to solve that issue. So we'll get an official response to this after the summer, I think, because technically we have this issue that and until the money is paid, it belongs to the cooperative. Okay, so we'll have to follow this. Thank you, Maxime, for this information. Thank you to the four of you for answering these questions. We don't have any further questions so far, but we will not hesitate to call you back if we have some more. So you can go now. Last part, this was the last Q&A session. So now we're going to look at the different offices that have followed us in Charleroi, in Mons, Louvain-la-Neuve, Liège, or in Brussels, in LaVallée, in Molenbeek.
Priori, devant l'écran va s'afficher dans
So we should have on the screen in a few seconds some colleagues in other offices, so I can see an office now in LaVallée, Brussels. Is that it? I think I see some colleagues watching us online.
tenant compte de la jauge et des dispositifs sanitaires.
Given the COVID measures, it's good that a few people could follow this, and then
Chez les amis de Charleroi,
this is our friends from Charleroi.
Qui nous regardent. On me dit qu'il y a
They're watching us. I'm being told there's a slight delay. This is why when you see them, they're not reacting,
très attentif.
because they seem to be very focused.
Ils auraient fait un petit coucou.
But I'm sure that if there was no delay, they would have said hello to us. Okay, these are the friends from Charleroi, and here we are in Louvain-la-Neuve,
La cité universitaire.
the university city. Thomas, maybe I can give you the floor.
Voilà l'ambiance in Louvain-la-Neuve.
That's the ambiance in Louvain-la-Neuve.
Dus we gaan onmiddellijk naar Bergen.
Bergen, ja. De volgende collega.
Now we are in Mons.
Voilà.
We are in Mons, and we have the youngest member, Smart. As you can see, I was told he bought his share this morning so that he could vote.
Catégorie bébé.
In the baby category.
Fluistert men me in het oor.
Now we are in Liège.
Pour des Liégeois, hein, Thomas?
This is what I'm being told.
Relatief nuchter uit op dit uur, dus...
And I have a feeling that they're following this carefully.
Et voilà les amis de Liège et à LaVallée, bien sûr. En tout cas, c'est sympa de...
Well, this is quite nice to be able to go around the offices. So this is the second year, to be honest, that we are organizing this, but we're not the only organization. You know, we have to adapt. Many people have to adapt to the COVID-19 measures. We are in Liège again.
Ce n'est encore que l'AG ordinaire. Hein.
So this is just the General Assembly so far, but the after meeting will take place afterwards. So as I was saying, this is the second time we organize this, and you know that since you've had an opportunity to come here in Brussels, well, this is a moment when we usually celebrate and we do a big barbecue with the different workshops. So we tried, despite of all, to adapt and to organize workshops and conferences. So you had an opportunity to learn about Mondragon this afternoon, and yesterday in France there was another conference with the Professional Authors League, I think. So of course you can find all of this on our YouTube page, Smart Cooperative, and you will find all the videos there. So will the next General Assembly take place in the same conditions? I think that no one knows, but we can't wait to see you for real in large numbers.
Alors, on me dit que le résultat des votes est vraiment là, presque...
I'm being told that the results for the votes are nearly available. We get more votes this year than last year. We're quite close. It would be great to have received even more votes than last year.
Vous partagez un projet qui a été réalisé.
Maybe I can tell you about a project that was carried out this year.
Dans quelques instants, s'il est disponible, on vous le diffusera. Rappelez-vous, l'an dernier, quelque chose, un mot à la mode.
Maybe you remember that last year we were talking about COVID all the time. And last year we had launched a web series with short videos with different personalities, whether political personalities, people from trade union, and so on and so forth. And those people had the possibility to take the floor.
Et pour donner une suite à ce projet, je dirais, virtuel, lié un petit peu à
la digitalisation. Cooperatives and so on. This year, our cooperative, with different colleagues, decided to create podcasts.
Sacré Travail qui a souhaité, Thomas.
The name of the podcast is Sacré Travail, a hell of a job, and we gave the floor to 6 Coop members coming from Liège, Brussels, France, and so on.
Donc vraiment le reflet de cette diversité.
They come from different backgrounds, have different profiles.
Des moins jeunes,
men, women,
un peu plus manuels, un peu plus intellectuels, plusieurs personnes
from different fields.
À l'image de notre
we gave them the floor. They truly represent our cooperative, and those podcasts are available online on our website.
Ici, vous retransmettre le générique pour vous.
We would have liked to show you
problème technique, on ne pourra pas, mais j'espère que
a video of those podcasts, but unfortunately we cannot for technical reasons. But maybe
projet de podcast comme je viens de le faire ici.
Based on my presentation, you will be interested in listening to those podcasts. As it was said, we launched the podcasts during the COVID-19 pandemic. We had to use digital tools that were not that famous before the COVID-19 pandemic. We were forced to go digital with the COVID-19 pandemic. And those podcasts give us the possibility to present some of our co-op members. They presented themselves, they presented their
quelques instants le générique du podcast.
Their projects and so on. Yes, we truly hope that you will go and listen to the accounts of those 6 entrepreneurs, 6 members of SMART. It is very inspiring.
Je voulais aussi mentionner, ça a été dit un peu plus tôt dans une des
As it was said
à la fin de l'été.
Before, we will organize end of August some activities, including with Copenhagen and Oxalis. For 7 or 8 years, we hold the big meetings in Cèdre. This is a very great place. Those meetings include networking sessions, training sessions, exchanges on cooperatives, on cooperation, on well-being, and so on. There will be different trainings, different workshops, and there's even the possibility to go for a swim. Everyone is warmly welcomed to those meetings. All the information are available on our website. Just put Big Smart on Google and you will find anything you are looking for. This is always a great time. Usually in August it is warm, it is sunny. And I'm looking at the technicians. Can we have the presentation of the podcasts? Yes, we have them. There you go.
Sacré travail. Écoutez une coopérative en mouvement. Smart tend son micro pour aller à la rencontre de ses sociétaires et en savoir plus sur le présent de leur profession et les défis qu'ils et elles relèvent chaque jour.
Une fois que vous avez trouvé le sens dans ce que vous faites, vous n'aurez plus jamais l'impression de travailler.
Et je pense que travailler en faisant quelque chose qu'on aime, c'est primordial, je trouve, dans la vie.
Alors oui, je suis toujours un peu au travail, mais en même temps, 9-17, c'est pas un truc qui me parle.
Les vrais experts du travail, c'est eux, c'est vous. 6 personnes, 6 voix, 6 routes différentes qui se croisent dans la coopérative. Photographes et stratèges, autrices et productrices, organisateurs de spectacles, chanteurs et ingénieurs informatiques, poètes et formatrices, plasticiens et sculpteurs de Liège à Marseille, de 25 à 65 ans, ensemble, tout redevient possible.
L'idée, c'est de suivre ses 2 pieds, donc écouter ses envies, faire ce qu'on a envie de faire, tout simplement.
Moi, je me sens comme une slasheuse, donc c'est-à-dire que j'ai plein de casquettes.
C'est pas un travail pour moi. Et c'est ça qui est super bien.
Freelance, entrepreneurs, travailleuses autonomes, travailleurs au projet, ces 6 voix racontent comment et pourquoi elles sont sorties des sentiers battus. Elles nous ouvrent la porte de leur passion et nous partagent avec bonne humeur leurs doutes, leurs réussites, leurs difficultés. Trouver son chemin, trouver la confiance en soi, trouver des gens avec qui partager ses questions et sa dynamique. C'est aussi ça le monde du travail de demain.
Voilà le générique donc de cette série de podcasts Sacré Travail, témoignage de Lisette, Axel, Déborah.
It was the credits of that podcast, and we thank the 6 COP members that
C'est vraiment quelque chose que je vous
took the floor to tell us about their passion. I really recommend you to go and look at that.
Ik hoor net dat de resultaten binnen een paar minuten binnen
Do
zijn.
we have the results, Thomas? The results will arrive in a couple of minutes. So yes, let's have a break. Grab a cup of coffee, a glass of water, and then we come back for the results. See you in 5 minutes for the results.
Voilà, voilà, on y est. Nous avons maintenant les résultats.
All right, we have the results. Thank you for staying with us during this break while we were counting the votes. Many of you have voted. We look at the results together, right? Thomas. Yes, we are absolutely ready to look at the results regarding the resolutions. You are still numerous on Facebook, YouTube, and the other social media where you are following us, and I thank you for that. Here come the results. Thomas, you have the floor for the first resolution that will appear in a couple of seconds on our screen. Here are the results. 702 people voted today, a bit more than last year, so this is something good. The first resolution, do you have good eyes? Yes. So approval of the accounts and reports for the fiscal year 2020.
3% stemt tegen, zie ik. Ik ga even dicht...
3% against. Maybe I will ask our colleagues that are in charge of the technical aspects to show their results on the main screen that is in front of us, because we cannot read them through and the interpreters don't have access to those results. Yes, the results are clear. 3% against, 25% abstained, and the rest, meaning 72% in favor. So nearly 3/4 in favor. The first resolution is approved. Resolution number 2, regarding the results.
C'est bon, décision d'affectation des résultats. Les sociétaires ont pris acte de l'affectation du résultat. Donc ici, il s'agissait de...
Results appropriation. So we take note of the appropriation of the results. So it was just a resolution without any vote. Resolution number 3, state of the membership and the shared capital. Just like for resolution number 2, the goal is to take note of that resolution on our social capital. Members took note of the social capital and the value of that capital. Then, the strategic plan 2025 that has been presented by Maxime and Françoise, it has been approved by 73%, 3% against, 24% abstention. Resolution number 5, it's coming in a second. So the election of the new board.
Pingpongen en de eerste verkozene is Pierre Daens.
Pour revenir un tout petit peu en arrière.
So, Pierre Daens, maybe.
Voilà, on va revenir.
There we go.
On va revenir un tout petit peu en arrière. C'est un moment.
Just go back. This is a very important thing. So Pierre Daens is elected. He's right next to me with 196 votes.
Bravo.
Congrats in any case. Then Isabelle Azeis, who's there as well in Brussels, 276 votes.
Pierre et Isabelle, donc qui.
Pierre and Isabelle got their terms renewed, so we thank them for that. Then a new member, somebody called Farah El Our, 269 votes. Congrats, Farah.
Farah qui est à LaVallée en ce moment.
Farah who's at LaVallée at the moment. If you are listening to us, congratulations for your election and welcome within the board. We have her on the screen. Wonderful. The next person who got elected with 169 votes is Fabien Gliner.
Niet aanwezig, maar goed. Zal op de hoogte gesteld worden, veronderstel ik.
En effet, voilà, Fabien.
So we'll tell him. We don't have him with us, but we will tell him. Yes, Fabien has been a member of the SMART project for a while, and we look forward to having him within the board. He will bring his experience and viewpoint.
On va passer alors
Now let's move on.
l'élection du conseil d'administration pour annoncer l'élection
with Johan Janssens. Congratulations, Johan. He got elected with 185 votes. Unfortunately, we won't have Johan with us today on streaming, but congratulations to Johan. The next one is Jan-Pierre Laluyère.
Dit alles in beeld te brengen met zijn collega's van
Did great work with his colleagues from the technical team. So congrats, Jean-Pierre Laluyère. We've been working with the technical team So Jan Pierre is part of the technical team that is organizing the General Assembly. Then Antea Missy, congratulations Antea. Antea is not with us, but we can still give him or her a round of applause. 221 votes for Antea Missy.
De volgende jonge dame is ook niet aanwezig hier bij ons.
Next young lady is not present either with us, but still congratulations Rosa Rochman with 280 votes.
Rosa, je crois que c'est le...
Congratulations, Rosa. I think that this is the highest amount of votes I've seen so far. Congratulations, Rosa. Next person who's not there either, but we can still congratulate her. It's Leila Tabamer, elected with 196 votes.
De volgende is Hugo van den Driesche, een
Next person is Hugo van den Driesche.
Verkozen met 251 stemmen. Gefeliciteerd.
From Liège, 251 votes.
Au sein du conseil d'administration précédent, je peux le dire maintenant.
Yes, congratulations, Hugo. He started working with the previous board and will join us now. This is wonderful. Congratulations, Hugo. We are now close to the end of the category A. And this is the end. This is category B now. Maxime Dechaine,
bravo à lui.
Delegated co-administrator. Congratulations, Maxime.
Dans la catégorie B. On est bien dans la catégorie B. Je te passe la parole, Thomas.
And Thomas, you have the floor for the next colleague. Next colleague from category B is Amaury Hageman, 199 votes. Congratulations, Amaury.
Bienvenue à toi au sein du conseil d'administration. Et alors, on a Marie-Françoise.
Then Marie-Françoise. We've mentioned her several times today. She won't be with us on streaming, but she is elected once again with more than 300 votes.
Qui poursuit donc l'aventure, puisqu'elle aussi était déjà...
She was already part of the board, and she stays within the board. Next person from category C is Anne-Laure Degris, 273 votes.
Bravo Anne-Laure.
Congratulations, Anne-Laure. So this is category C. And still in category C, re-election of Françoise Kémajou, who will be representing Pour la Solidarité, her organization, 315 votes. Congrats. Congratulations. The next person who got elected is Pierre Vreven, 153 votes.
En effet, Pierre qui est...
Pierre has been involved in SMART for a very long while. He's been one of the founding fathers of SMART. So he's elected, and this is great news for him and for the SMART project.
Je ne sais pas s'il y a encore des candidats. Voilà, on me dit que c'est tout. Donc on...
So this is the end of the election. We've been through all the different candidates that got elected. Once again, I would like to thank the board that has been managing the SMART project so far. I would like to
toutes les joies à découvrir le projet SMART pour le nouveau conseil d'administration.
Wish all the best to the next board and a final round of applause for the two boards, the previous one and the new one.
Thomas, je te repasse la parole pour passer en revue. Je crois qu'il doit rester peut-être deux résolutions.
I think there may be one or two more resolutions to look at before we conclude. Yes, absolutely. Resolution number 6. Regarding SMART in progress. COP members took note of the process for the period 2021-2022, so we'll have an assessment period. So COP members took note of it.
De SMART in progress que notre collègue Germain a pu présenter.
So they took note of it, thanks to our colleague Germain, and we have one final resolution, resolution number 7,
La désignation, les pouvoirs pour
which is about appointment and powers approved by 76%, 2% against, 22% abstention. All the results are obviously available on the internet. You can go and have a look at those results if you've missed something. They will be available from today onwards on our website.
le passage en revue des résolutions. Merci.
So that was for the resolutions. I'd like to thank you, dear members, for your votes. As it was said, we have a bit more votes than last year, so we are highly satisfied with that. Thomas? We have some people to thank. Yes, absolutely. I think that we have reached the end of this General Assembly. We have several people to thank. First of all, I'd like to thank with the interpreters. I'd like to thank the interpreters for their work. Then we have obviously the technical team in charge of the streaming. These are the people that helped us organize this session. And then we have all the people that did their best over the past years. We'd like to thank all the advisors that ensured some good human contacts between us. And last but not least, all the members that are here and that watched this meeting. We'd like also to thank all the teams that have been preparing this General Assembly, whether members of the mutualized teams, partners with whom we work, the technical team, we talked about them, the translators and interpreters that helped you follow this General Assembly, all the members of the mutualized team that make their best to make sense with the SMART project, and we'd like to thank you, dear members, for your trust. A round of applause for all those people and for all of you once again.
J'étais ravi avec Thomas. Nous ne sommes pas deux.
With Thomas, well, we are in blue, but we are not Smurfs. But we were thrilled to facilitate this General Assembly.
Bonne chance au diable.
Our colleagues from the French-Belgian Assembly
Portugal, si je me trompe pas.
Wished good luck to the Red Devils yesterday, so we wish good luck to Les Bleus, the French football team, for the next match against Portugal in 1 or 2 days.
C'est ce soir pour le moment after AG, mais c'est aussi.
We'll have, let's say, a party after the General Assembly in this very building today, but don't forget that we organize a lot of events, exhibitions, workshops, and so on and so forth throughout the year. So please come and visit us. This is the end of this session. Thank you very much and see you next year.